What's the meaning of meditation and how do we start? Well, meditation takes us into the experience of our true self. That's what it is. It's not some esoteric practice that takes you somewhere else. It feels very different from the world we live in, because most of us don't live in our true self. We live in this false identity. We live in the games of the ego. We live in the games of the mind. Meditation peels all of that back and brings us into an experience of our true self. It's a practice of undoing, you could say, rather than a practice of doing. Most of what we do is a practice of doing. Meditation is more a practice of undoing. Because remember, we're coming back to who we are. So it's not about going out somewhere, becoming something different, learning something different. It's really about undoing the learning that says you are the body, that says you are finite, you are limited, you are bounded, you are your bank account, you are your skills, you are your talents, you are your degrees, you are your work. It's unlearning that. It's also unlearning, undoing the games of the mind, which comes, ironically, it can't come through the mind. You can't use the mind to undo the mind. We try. Anybody who has tried to go into their mind rationally, consciously, you find it very, very difficult. We can think about something. We can say, okay, I'm not going to get angry anymore. Okay, from now on, I'm going to be very peaceful and loving. Conscious mind making decisions. But the problem is that which is running my patterns is not my conscious mind. And so I can't get into the problem by thinking about it. The conscious mind doesn't have access to those patterns, to where that is. And so it puts you in this very interesting, ironic state of, okay, well, what do I do? And in meditation, there's a lot of other practices as well, but in meditation, what it gives us is an experience of the space between our thoughts. The thoughtless space into which truth can flow. Because the thoughts of my thinking mind, of my conscious mind, are that which is keeping me away. Again, ironically, it would be nice if I were my own ally here, but ironically, it's keeping me away from both the subconscious patterning and from the true experience of myself. Because the mind only thinks about things from a distance. And real awakening is about connection. And the mind doesn't know how to do that. But fortunately, there actually is a space between my thoughts. It starts very small, minuscule, but slowly with practice, in meditation, what you find is, the mind wanders, you have a thought, but then you bring it back. You bring it back to what you're meditating on, whether it's the breath, whether it's a mantra, whatever it may be. And slowly, what you find is, there are moments, and they may be very, very small to begin with, but they get longer and longer and longer, in which there isn't a thought. And into that space, awareness comes. into that space, grace flows. In that space, you have the experience of the truth of who you are. And in that space is everything. And so even though it doesn't always last very long, the beauty is once you've had a taste of it, everything in your life changes because you know now what's true. And so what you start to find is, that you want to just keep going back to it. Want to go to the movies tonight? Nah, I'm going to stay home and meditate. You start to have conversations like that. Because that experience, that space, is so much more joyful, so much more peaceful, so much more blissful than anything that can happen in the outer world, than anything that the conscious mind can think about or create. So you want to keep coming back to it. And going back to the first question, every time the mind starts to have thoughts that are useless, you actually start to rebel inside because you realize those are pulling you out of that space. And so within you there becomes this own voice that's like, no, no, no. Go away, I'm not going to get in your boat. Because more enjoyable than thinking about the grudge you're holding, or more enjoyable than thinking something about another person or about yourself or fantasizing about dinner or whatever it may be, more enjoyable than any of that is the space between your thoughts. And so you're going to do whatever you need to do to come back to that stillness, to that experience, to that light. And so that meditation starts to come into your life. So it's not just on the mat, on the cushion. It starts impacting your life. And how to start? Start anywhere. Really, I mean, there's so many techniques. I don't want to say what's right, what's wrong. These days, everything is available, whether it's online, whether it's in books, whether it's at different programs. Come here and learn to meditate. Go somewhere else and learn to meditate. I mean, there's so many. And there's really no right or wrong. It's all about coming to the same experience, that same space of connection, of oneness, of joy, of bliss, of truth. Most of the practices are going to take you in through giving the mind something to think about other than dinner and your job and your bank account and your family and your weight and whatnot. Some of it's the breath. And it's not so much thinking about the breath, it's rather simply being aware of it. Simply having the mind unite with the breath. If the mind is with the breath, it can't be with dinner. Some of the practices give a mantra. Some do both. Some may be on a contemplation. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Which sounds intellectual, but within barely a minute or two of doing it, it no longer is an intellectual question. It becomes a question that the heart asks with every beat. You no longer need the mind to ask it, the heart starts asking it. And the answer starts coming in that heart space rather than in the mind. And what I would say to you is try being aware of the breath, try chanting a mantra. Try opening your eyes and looking at a candle flame. Try a mixture of all of them. See what works. All that matters is that you're able to take yourself from this frame of reference, this state of mind, state of consciousness, into a truer state of consciousness. That you're able to drop into an experience of who you are, an experience of spaciousness, an experience of expansion, an experience of love. And whatever gets you there is the right way.